The research ship Harmony's Edge drifted through the cold darkness of space, its sensors scanning the void for any sign of intelligent life. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat at her station, headphones covering her ears as she listened to the endless chatter of the galaxy. As the ship's chief language expert, she spent her days trying to understand the voices that traveled between the stars. Most of the signals were boring. Trade messages, weather reports from distant worlds, ships asking for landing permission at space stations. Elena had been doing this job for 10 years and she thought she had heard everything. She was wrong. The signal that came through at 1437 ship time was different. It carried pain, fear, desperation. Elena's training kicked in as she began recording and analyzing the transmission. The language was Zephyrian, spoken by a peaceful alliance of 3 alien species known across the galaxy for their healing arts and their ability to turn dead worlds into gardens. Emergency transmission. To all civilized worlds, the voice said, crackling through space static. This is Sage Prime Kethmore of the Zephyrian Coalition. We are under attack. Our worlds are dying. They have returned. Elena's blood went cold. She had studied the old records. She knew what they meant, the Devourers. The transmission continued and Elena wished it would stop. The Sage Prime's voice broke as he described ships that looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. Creatures that fed on living beings. Worlds stripped bare of all life. Entire populations disappearing into the bellies of biomechanical monsters. 12 worlds in our coalition, the voice said. 8 have gone silent. The others are evacuating, but there is nowhere to run. The Devourers move faster than our ships. They learn from every world they consume. They grow stronger. Elena called Captain Morrison to the communications bay. The captain was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded research vessels for 20 years and had seen many strange things in space. But when she heard the Zephyrian transmission, her face went pale. How long since this was sent? Morrison asked. The signal lag suggests 6 days, Elena replied. Captain, if this is real, it's real, Morrison said quietly. I've read the classified reports. The Devourers hit the galaxy 300 years ago, destroyed 47 civilizations before they vanished. Command always feared they would come back. The transmission changed. Now it showed images. Elena wished she could unsee them. Zephyrian cities burning, their beautiful crystal spires melting under acid that fell from flying creatures. Children running through streets as things with too many teeth chased them. Processing centers where living beings were sorted like cargo. The healthy ones taken deeper into the facilities while the weak were simply consumed on the spot. We have sent this message to every major power in the galaxy. Sage Prime Kethmore continued. The Altarian Empire. The Crystal Resonance. The Trade Federation. The Human Territories. Anyone who receives this, please. We are not warriors. We have no great fleets. We have only our knowledge of medicine and life, but they are taking even that from us, learning our secrets as they consume our people. Captain Morrison ordered the ship to change course immediately. They would carry this message back to human space as fast as their engines could take them. But even as they began the journey home, more transmissions came through. The Altarian Empire responded first. Their message was cold and calculating. The Zephyrian territories are too far from our borders. We cannot spare ships for a rescue mission that may already be too late. We offer shelter to any refugees who can reach our space. The crystal resonance was more diplomatic but equally unhelpful. We feel great sorrow for the Zephyrian people. However, our analysis suggests that engaging the Devourers would result in unacceptable losses to our own populations. We must protect our citizens first. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy offered sympathy but no action. Too far away, they said. Too dangerous, too late. Not their problem. Elena listened to each rejection and felt something burning in her chest. These were people dying, families being torn apart, children being fed to monsters, and the galaxy's great civilizations were doing nothing because it was not convenient for them. The last transmission from Zephyrian space came as the Harmony's Edge reached the edge of human territory. Sage Prime Kethmore's voice was weaker now, filled with exhaustion and grief. This is our final broadcast. The Devourers have reached Ethos, our homeworld. Our defensive platforms are falling. I can see their harvest ships descending toward our cities. To any who receive this message, remember us. Remember that we tried to heal worlds and help others. If you have children, hold them close. The darkness is coming and we could not stop it. The signal ended in static. Elena sat in the silence that followed, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Captain Morrison's hands were clenched into fists. "How long until we reach Earth?" Elena asked. 18 hours, Morrison replied. "I've already sent a priority burst transmission to Terra Defense Command. Admiral Chen will have the basic details before we arrive. Will they help?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Humans have only been in space for 200 years. We're still the newcomers. Our fleets are small compared to the Altarians or the Trade Federation. But we'll try. Elena, I've known humans my whole life. We have a saying. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. When humans see evil, really see it." Morrison paused. "Well, let's just say we don't have a good track record of walking away from fights." As the Harmony's edge flew toward Earth, Elena played the Zephyrian transmissions over and over. She studied every word, every image, every detail. If humanity was going to act, they would need to understand exactly what they were facing. The Devourers were not just conquerors. They were something worse. They consumed entire civilizations, not for territory or resources, but for the pure act of consumption itself. They took the knowledge, the culture, the very essence of what made a species unique, and they used it to become more deadly. Elena thought about the images of Zephyrian children running through burning streets. She thought about families torn apart. She thought about an entire peaceful civilization disappearing into the darkness. Then she thought about human children. Human families. Human worlds. The galaxy's great powers had decided that the Zephyrians were not worth saving. They had chosen safety over justice, calculation over compassion. But Elena had faith that humans would choose differently. She had studied her own species as much as alien ones. Humans had a dangerous habit of doing what was right instead of what was smart. They had a weakness for hopeless causes and lost wars. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, Elena wondered if that weakness would prove to be humanity's greatest strength. The galaxy was about to find out what happened when someone sent a call for aid to a species that still believed in heroes. The darkness was coming, as Sage Prime Kethmore had said. But maybe, just maybe, it was about to meet something even more dangerous. It was about to meet humanity when they were angry. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room beneath Luna Base, watching the holographic display show the Zephyrian territories. Red markers indicated worlds that had gone silent. The few green dots left were fading to yellow as evacuation ships fled toward empty space. "Show me the footage again," Chen ordered. The room dimmed as Elena's transmission played on the main screen. The council members watched in silence as the images of Devourer processing centers filled the air. Living beings sorted like cargo. Children separated from their parents. The systematic destruction of everything that made the Zephyrians who they were. President Maria Santos, attending the meeting via secure link from Earth, spoke first. "Admiral, what are our military options?" "Limited," Chen replied honestly. "The Zephyrian territories are 1,700 light-years from our nearest base. It would take our fastest ships 47 days to reach them. By then they'll all be dead," finished General Viktor Petrov, head of military intelligence. "The Devourers move fast. Their bioships don't need supply lines or rest stops. They consume what they need from their victims." Council member James Wright shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Admiral, I understand the moral implications here, but we have to think practically. We have our own colonies to protect, our own people to consider. The Altarians and the Crystal Resonance both declined to help, and they have fleets 10 times larger than ours. The Altarians and the Crystal Resonant," said Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been invited to brief the council, made strategic decisions based on cost-benefit analysis. They decided that the Zephyrians were not worth the risk. "And they're probably right," Wright continued. "We've been in space for only 2 centuries. The Zephyrians have been galactic citizens for over 1,000 years. If they can't defend themselves against this threat, what makes us think we can?" President Santos leaned forward on the screen. "Dr. Vasquez, in your professional opinion, if we do nothing, what happens next?" Elena had been preparing for this question. "Madam President, the Devourers don't just destroy civilizations. They learn from them. Every world they consume makes them stronger, smarter, more dangerous. The Zephyrians had advanced medical technology and terraforming knowledge. If the Devourers acquire that, they become better at keeping their victims alive longer, Admiral Chen finished grimly. And better at turning dead worlds into breeding grounds. But surely, Wright said, they'll be satisfied with the Zephyrian territories. Why would they come toward human space? General Petrov pulled up a star chart. Because, Councilman, consumption is not about territory for them. It's about the act itself. According to our xenobiological studies, Devourers are driven by an instinct to consume and integrate all sentient life. They won't stop with the Zephyrians. They'll move on to the next nearest civilizations, which are, President Santos asked. The Kepler colonies, Petrov replied. 17 human settlements with a combined population of 4 million people. The room fell silent. Admiral Chen walked to the display and pointed at the Devourer positions. Madam President, members of the Council, I'm not going to lie to you. This would be the largest military operation in human history. We would have to commit 60% of our total fleet. The casualties could be enormous. We might lose, but, Santos prompted, but I've been a soldier for 30 years. I've studied every major conflict in human history, and I know one thing for certain. When we see evil this pure, this absolute, we don't calculate the odds. We fight, Council Member Sarah Kim spoke up. Admiral, what would you need? Chen had been preparing for this question too. Full fleet mobilization. Every battleship, every cruiser, every marine unit. Authorization to recruit civilian volunteers. Emergency production orders for the shipyards and, she paused, activation of the Ghost Fleet. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's most classified military secret. 12 of the most advanced warships ever built, hidden in bases beyond Pluto's orbit. Ships so advanced that their existence was known only to the highest levels of government. The Ghost Fleet has never been deployed, Wright said nervously. That's because we've never faced anything that required it, Chen replied. The Devourers require it. President Santos was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see her thinking, weighing the possibilities. Finally, the president spoke. I want to see the footage one more time, just the processing centers. The room watched again as the images played. Zephyrian families torn apart. Children crying for their parents. Living beings treated like raw materials. When it ended, President Santos stood up on the screen. Councilors, I'm calling for an immediate vote. All in favor of authorizing Admiral Chen's mission to aid the Zephyrian coalition? The vote was unanimous. What happened next shocked the galaxy. Within 6 hours of the council vote, every major news network in human space was broadcasting the Zephyrian footage. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Humans across the solar system and beyond began volunteering, not just military volunteers but civilians wanting to help in any way they could. Shipyards received thousands of applications from engineers willing to work around the clock. Medical personnel volunteered for what would certainly be the most dangerous humanitarian mission in history. Cargo ship captains offered to retrofit their vessels as support ships. At the Luna shipyards, night shift supervisor Tommy O'Brien found himself managing the largest construction project in human history. We've got people working 18-hour shifts, he reported to Admiral Chen. Volunteers are sleeping in the corridors between shifts. I've never seen anything like it. How long to have the fleet ready? Chen asked. Give me 72 hours, O'Brien replied. We'll have every ship armed, fueled, and ready for the longest jump in human history. The mobilization was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Altarian Empire, monitoring human communications, sent a diplomatic message expressing confusion. We do not understand, their ambassador wrote. The Zephyrians are not your allies. They have no strategic value to your civilization. Why are you risking so much for them? Admiral Chen's response became legendary in diplomatic circles. Because they asked for help, and no one else answered. Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the Special Operations Command was assigned to lead the Advanced Reconnaissance Force. His job was to jump ahead of the main fleet and gather intelligence on Devourer positions and capabilities. Sir, Rodriguez asked Chen during his final briefing. What are our rules of engagement? Chen looked at him with steel in her eyes. Captain, we are going into the darkness to fight monsters. There is only one rule, bring our people home. And make sure the Zephyrians have a home to return to. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked frantically to decode more Zephyrian transmissions. Each new message painted a worse picture of what they would face. The Devourers had evolved since their last appearance 3 centuries ago. They had learned from every civilization they consumed. Their bioships were larger, their weapons more deadly, their hunger more terrible. But as Elena worked through the night, translating desperate messages from the last Zephyrian holdouts, she felt something she hadn't expected: hope. Because while the Devourers had been evolving, so had humanity. And they were about to learn what happened when you threatened someone under human protection. The fleet launched at dawn, Sol system time. 237 ships carrying humanity's finest soldiers, engineers, and medics toward a battle that would determine whether evil could triumph simply by being too terrible to face. As the ships engaged their hyperspace drives and vanished into the void, one message played on repeat across human space. It was Admiral Chen's final broadcast before departure. To any who are listening, when someone calls for help, humans answer. When someone preys on the innocent, humans fight. When someone thinks they can consume the light of civilization, they learn why the darkness should fear us more than we fear it. The journey to Zephyrian space would take 47 days. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity looked like when they were truly angry. The human fleet moved through hyperspace like a spear thrown across the galaxy. For 47 days, 237 ships pushed their engines beyond safe limits, racing toward a war zone that grew worse with each passing hour. Captain Marcus Rodriguez had arrived first with his reconnaissance ships. The reports he sent back to the main fleet painted a picture of horror that exceeded even their worst expectations. Admiral Chen. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication system. You need to see this. The bridge crew of the flagship Terra's Wrath gathered around the main display as Rodriguez's data stream came through. The images showed what had once been the Zephyrian world of verdant hope. The planet had been famous throughout the galaxy for its floating gardens and crystal cities that grew like living things. Now it was a nightmare. The bioships of the Devourers covered the planet's surface like a disease. Massive organic structures pulsed with sick light, processing the planet's resources and population into fuel for the fleet. The beautiful crystal cities had been dissolved into raw materials. The floating gardens had been stripped bare. Population? Admiral Chen asked quietly. 11 million when the attack began, Rodriguez replied. Current estimates suggest less than 200,000 survivors, and they're being held in processing centers. Dr. James Park, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, studied the readings from his station. Admiral, these bioships are larger than anything in our historical records. The Devourers have been busy during their 300-year absence. How busy? Chen asked. Our estimates suggest they've consumed at least 30 civilizations since they last appeared in galactic records. Each consumption event makes them stronger, more adaptable. These aren't the same creatures that vanished 3 centuries ago. Elena Vasquez worked frantically at her communication station, trying to establish contact with any remaining Zephyrian forces. The few signals she could detect were weak and desperate. I've got something, she announced. A small group of refugee ships hiding in the asteroid field around Verdant Hope's outer moon. On the screen, a familiar face appeared. Sage Prime Kethmore looked older than in his original transmission, his blue skin pale with exhaustion and grief. Behind him, Elena could see the cramped interior of what was clearly an emergency shelter. Human ships, Kethmore said, his voice filled with disbelief. You came. We thought no one would come. Sage Prime, Admiral Chen replied. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terra Defense Force. We received your call for aid. What's your current status? Kethmore's composure cracked. Admiral, they took our children first. The Devourers. They prioritize the young because their biological systems are more adaptable. They're using our children to breed new types of bioweapons. The bridge fell silent. Several crew members looked sick. How many refugee ships? Chen asked. 47 vessels carrying approximately 30,000 survivors from 12 worlds. Kethmore replied. We have medical supplies for perhaps another week. Food for 3 days, understood. We'll establish a safe zone for your ships. But Sage Prime, I need to know everything about Devourer capabilities, everything. Over the next several hours, as the human fleet prepared for battle, Kethmore shared intelligence that made their situation clear. The Devourers had established major breeding facilities on 3 Zephyrian worlds. Their fleet numbered over 2,000 bioships, each one a living weapon capable of adapting to enemy tactics in real time. They learn, Kethmore explained. Every weapon you use against them, every tactic you employ. They absorb the knowledge and develop counters. The Altarian Empire sent a battle group when the attacks began. 12 ships, some of the finest in their fleet. The Devourers destroyed them in less than 4 hours, and then used Altarian weapon designs to upgrade their own bioships. Chief Engineer Tommy O'Brien, who had traveled with the fleet to oversee combat modifications, studied the data. Admiral, their adaptive capability means traditional fleet tactics won't work. They'll learn from our first engagement and be ready for our second. Then we don't give them a second engagement, Chen replied. We hit them everywhere at once with everything we have, and we don't stop until they're all dead. Rodriguez had been mapping Devourer positions throughout the system. Admiral, I've identified their command structure. They operate through biological link networks, with control nodes on each major bioship. If we can disrupt those networks, they lose coordination, Dr. Park finished. Captain, I've been analyzing the biological samples you collected. I think I can engineer a virus that targets their neural network specifically. How long do you need? Chen asked. 6 hours for initial development, another 12 for mass production. Chen nodded. Do it. Commander Park, you'll lead the virus delivery mission personally. Admiral, Rodriguez interrupted. There's something else. The Devourers have established what they call a prime processing center on Ethos, the Zephyrian homeworld. According to our intelligence, that's where they're keeping the children. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Admiral Chen's expression hardened into something that would have frightened the galaxy's most dangerous pirates. How many children? Approximately 50,000 from all 12 worlds. Defenses? Heavy. Bioships, ground-based organic artillery, aerial predators bred specifically for combat. It would be a suicide mission for a traditional assault force. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In 18 hours, we begin the largest rescue operation in human history. The enemy has taken children. Human doctrine is clear on this point. We do not negotiate with those who harm children. We do not calculate acceptable losses when children are involved. We go in, we get them out, and we make sure nothing like this ever happens again. The response from the fleet was immediate. Every ship reported ready for combat. Marine units requested permission to begin preparing for ground assault. Pilots volunteered for missions that everyone knew were likely to be one-way trips, but it was a message from the civilian volunteers that truly captured the mood of the fleet. A group of cargo ship captains had sent a single line. We didn't come this far to calculate odds. We came to bring children home. As the fleet prepared for battle, Elena received one final transmission from the Zephyrian refugees. It wasn't from Sage Prime Kethmore. It was from a child, a young Zephyrian who couldn't have been more than 10 years old in human terms. To the humans who came to help us, the child said in carefully practiced English, My name is Sarah. The monsters took my parents, but they told me that help was coming. They told me that humans never abandon people who need help. I'm scared, but I'm trying to be brave like you. Please save my friends. Please save everyone. The transmission ended and Elena realized she was crying. Around her, the bridge crew had similar reactions. These weren't numbers on a tactical display anymore. They were children who had put their faith in humanity's promise to help. Admiral Chen stood and addressed her crew. 47 days ago, someone sent a call for aid across the galaxy. Every major power heard it. Every great civilization received it. They all chose to do nothing. She paused, looking at each person on the bridge. Today we show the galaxy what happens when humanity hears children crying in the darkness. Today we remind the universe that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The fleet began moving toward Ethos. Humanity's fury focused like a laser on the monsters who had dared to harm the innocent. Behind them, the refugee ships followed, carrying the last hope of the Zephyrian people. The darkness was about to meet something it had never encountered before. A species that became more dangerous the more desperate the situation became. A species that had built their entire civilization on the idea that protecting the innocent was worth any sacrifice. The Devourers had made their greatest mistake. They had taken children. Now they would learn why that was the one thing humans would never forgive. The Battle of Ethos began before dawn, ship time, with humanity doing what they did best, the impossible. Admiral Chen had divided her fleet into 7 strike groups, each targeting a different Devourer position simultaneously. The aliens had never faced an enemy that attacked everywhere at once, with no concern for traditional battle doctrine or acceptable losses. Captain Rodriguez led the first wave, his ghost fleet ships materializing from stealth directly inside the Devourer perimeter. The bioships, massive living nightmares of flesh and metal, turned to respond to this new threat just as the main human fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the system's edge. All ships, weapons free, Chen's voice echoed across the battle space. Remember, they have our children. The space around Ethos exploded into violence. Human plasma cannons tore into bioship hulls that tried to adapt to the energy signatures. Quantum torpedoes punched through organic armor that pulsed and shifted like living skin. And everywhere, human ships pressed forward with a fury that shocked even their allies. Aboard the Marine assault ship, Righteous Anger, Sergeant Maria Gonzalez led her squad toward their drop pods. Their mission was simple: get to the Prime Processing Center, secure the children, and hold until extraction. The fact that the facility was defended by thousands of biomechanical horrors was just another detail to work around. "Listen up," Gonzalez shouted over the sound of weapons fire outside. "Intelligence says there are 50,000 kids down there. Zephyrian children who've been waiting for someone to save them. Today we're someone." The drop pods launched like bullets toward Ethos' surface. Around them, Devourer flying creatures swarmed to intercept. These aerial predators had been bred specifically for combat, with acid spray weapons and claws that could tear through starship hulls. They had never faced human Marines who fought like their own children's lives depended on it. Private Tommy Chen, no relation to the Admiral, fired his plasma rifle continuously as his pod fell through the swarm. "Come on, you ugly things. You want a piece of me? Come get some." The pods crashed into the surface of Ethos around the Prime Processing Center. What the Marines found there would haunt their dreams forever. The facility was a massive organic structure that pulsed with sick light. Biomechanical creatures moved between buildings that looked like they had grown rather than been built. And everywhere there were processing stations where living beings were sorted and prepared for consumption. But the Marines had not come this far to be horrified. They had come to do a job. "Teams Alpha through Delta establish perimeter," Gonzalez ordered. "Teams Echo through Hotel locate the children. Teams India through Lima secure extraction routes. Move, move, move." The battle for the processing center was unlike anything in military history. Devourer creatures attacked with biological weapons that adapted to each human tactic. But human soldiers adapted right back, sharing tactical data across their communications networks in real time. When acid spitters learned to counter plasma weapons, the Marines switched to kinetic rifles. When biomechanical hunters began predicting human movement patterns, the soldiers started using tactics so aggressive they bordered on suicidal. Dr. Amy Foster, the medical officer attached to Gonzalez's unit, reached the children's holding area first. What she found there broke her heart and filled her with rage in equal measure. Thousands of young Zephyrians huddled in organic cages that pulsed with nerve-like fibers. The children were weak from poor nutrition and fear, but they were alive. When they saw Foster's human face, many began crying with relief. "It's okay," Foster said in careful Zephyrian as she began cutting through the cage barriers. "The humans are here. We're going to take you home." Meanwhile, in space, the naval battle had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen. Human ships, outnumbered 4-1, were not just holding their ground but advancing. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the destroyer Defiant, led her ship directly into a cluster of biovessels 3 times her size. "All power to forward shields," Park ordered. "Target the lead bioship's neural clusters. We're going to ram them if we have to." The bioships tried to adapt to human tactics, growing new weapons and armor in real time. But human engineers were adapting just as fast. Chief Engineer O'Brien, now aboard the flagship, worked frantically to modify weapon frequencies faster than the Devourers could counter them. Their biological systems have a response lag of approximately 12 seconds. O'Brien reported to Admiral Chen. "If we can change our attack patterns every 10 seconds, we can stay ahead of their adaptations." "Do it," Chen replied. "All ships implement pattern rotation protocol. Show these things what happens when they try to out-evolve humanity." The turning point came when Dr. Park's biovirus reached the Devourer command ships. Rodriguez had led a suicide mission to deliver the viral payload directly into the largest biovessel's neural core. His ship, Vengeance, was torn apart by organic defense systems, but not before the virus was deployed. The effect was immediate and devastating. Devourer bioships began losing coordination as their neural networks collapsed. Ships that had moved with predatory intelligence suddenly lurched through space like dying animals. But the Devourers had one final card to play. Deep in the processing center on Ethos, something enormous began to stir. The facility's core revealed itself to be not just a building, but a massive creature that had been dormant. The Devourer. Overmind, the central intelligence that controlled their entire species, awakened for the first time in centuries. It was a monster beyond description. Part machine, part living tissue, part something else entirely. It towered over the landscape like a mountain, its voice booming across all communication frequencies. Humans, the Overmind said, its words causing pain to anyone who heard them. You fight well, but you cannot win. We offer you terms. Withdraw your forces and we will spare your worlds. Continue this assault and we will consume every human child in the galaxy. Admiral Chen's response became legendary. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terra Defense Force. You have mistaken us for prey. We are the apex predators of Terra. We do not negotiate with child killers. We do not calculate acceptable losses when innocents are involved. Surrender now or we will hunt you across the galaxy until nothing remains of your kind. The Overmind's laughter shook the planet. Foolish mammals! You think your fury can match our hunger? You think your weapons can destroy what has consumed 1,000 worlds? Let's find out, Chen replied. She gave the order that would be studied in military academies for centuries. All ships, all Marines, all personnel. Everything we have. Everything we are. For the children. What followed was not a battle but an extermination. Human forces, no longer concerned with their own survival, pressed forward with a ferocity that terrified even their alien allies. Ships rammed biovessels when their weapons ran dry. Marines charged positions that should have been impossible to take. Engineers rigged their own ships to explode if it meant taking Devourer vessels with them. On the surface of Ethos, Sergeant Gonzalez led the final assault on the Overmind itself. Her Marines, carrying the rescued children on their backs, fought their way through waves of biomechanical horrors toward the extraction point. Foster, Gonzalez shouted to the medical officer. How many kids do we have? 47,000 secured, Foster replied, carrying a young Zephyrian who couldn't walk. 3,000 still unaccounted for. Then we're not done yet, Gonzalez said. Alpha team with me. We're going back in. The rescue of the last children required Marines to enter the Overmind's core structure itself. What they found there was a nightmare of biological machinery designed to break down living beings into their component parts. But they also found the missing 3,000 children, and they brought every single one of them home. As the last evacuation ship lifted off from Ethos, the Overmind made one final attempt to escape. The massive creature tried to launch itself into space, seeking to reach its fleet and coordinate a retreat. It never made it. Admiral Chen had been waiting for this moment. The entire human fleet focused their fire on the ascending Overmind, weapons designed to crack planets pouring their fury into the creature that had dared to threaten children. The Overmind died screaming its defiance across the communication spectrum, its death cry carrying across the galaxy for anyone to hear. In that sound was the end of a species that had consumed civilizations for millennia. When the firing stopped, space around Ethos was filled with the debris of dead bioships. The few surviving Devourer vessels fled into the void, leaderless and broken. The first phase of humanity's fury was complete. But as Admiral Chen looked at the rescued children being treated aboard the medical ships, she knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Because humanity had learned something important about themselves that day. When they truly committed to protecting the innocent, they were capable of anything. Even monsters that had devoured galaxies could be made to fear the darkness. The war did not end with the Battle of Ethos. It ended with systematic extermination that lasted 6 months and covered 47 star systems. Admiral Chen had made a promise to the galaxy, and humanity intended to keep it. Every Devourer nest, every bioship, every trace of their presence would be hunted down and destroyed. The species that had consumed civilizations for millennia would learn what it meant to become prey. Captain Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral after his heroics at Ethos, commanded the Deep Hunt fleet. His mission was simple: find every remaining Devourer and eliminate them. The galaxy watched in awed silence as human ships methodically tracked down creatures that had terrorized the stars for centuries. Contact, bearing 270, reported Commander Lisa Park from the bridge of the Relentless. Bioship signatures, approximately 15 vessels attempting to establish a breeding colony on Kepler 400.2b. Understood, Rodriguez replied. All ships, standard extermination protocol. No survivors, no escape pods, no mercy. The human fleet had learned to fight the Devourers with cold efficiency. They used their own biological weapons against them, deployed viruses that specifically targeted Devourer neural networks, and showed no hesitation in destroying entire asteroid fields if they suspected Devourer presence. But the cost had been enormous. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the memorial garden aboard the medical ship, Healing Light, reading the names carved into black stone. 200,000 human lives lost in the rescue of the Zephyrian Coalition. 40% of the original fleet destroyed or heavily damaged. Entire Marine units that had volunteered for missions knowing they would not return. They would have said it was worth it, said a voice behind her. Elena turned to find Sage Prime Kethmore, the Zephyrian leader who had sent that first desperate transmission. His blue skin had regained some of its healthy color, and his eyes held a light that had been missing during the dark days of the Devourer occupation. 47,000 children rescued, Elena said softly. 12 worlds liberated, an entire species saved from extinction. Yes, I think they would have said it was worth it. Kethmore nodded toward the memorial wall. Dr. Vasquez, my people have a tradition. When someone saves our lives, we become family. Those names represent not just human heroes, but Zephyrian family members who died protecting us. That would honor them, Elena replied. The rescue of the Zephyrian Coalition had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Other civilizations who had declined to help when the call for aid first went out now watched humanity with a mixture of awe and terror. The species they had dismissed as newcomers had just eliminated a threat that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. The Altarian Empire was the first to make contact. Ambassador Veltar arrived at Luna Base 3 months after the Battle of Ethos, carrying a formal apology and an offer of alliance. Admiral Chen, the ambassador said during their meeting, the Empire wishes to express its regret for our initial response to the Zephyrian crisis. We failed to understand the true nature of the threat. Chen looked at the ambassador with eyes that had seen too much death. Ambassador, your empire made a strategic decision based on risk assessment. You chose to protect your own people first. And you chose to protect people you had never met across 1,700 light-years of space, Veltar replied. The Empire has reconsidered its policies regarding humanitarian crises. Good, Chen said simply. Because if something like this happens again, humanity will expect the galaxy's great powers to act like the civilized beings they claim to be. Similar meetings took place across human space as former neutrals, and even former enemies sought to establish diplomatic relations. The crystal resonance offered technological exchanges. The Trade Federation proposed economic partnerships. Even the isolated Voidwalkers sent representatives to discuss mutual defense treaties. But the most significant change came from within human society itself. Dr. Vasquez found herself appointed as the first Director of Galactic Protection Protocols, a new human-led initiative designed to create rapid response networks for civilizations under threat. Her office, located on Luna Base, received funding from across human space and volunteer support from dozens of allied species. The goal, Elena explained to a gathering of galactic representatives, is to ensure that no civilization ever again has to face extinction alone. When someone calls for aid, the galaxy will answer. The protocols established by Elena's organization became the foundation for a new type of galactic civilization. Instead of empires concerned only with their own borders, species began forming protection networks based on shared values rather than shared interests. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding the Galactic Protection Fleet, led joint human-alien forces on their first major mission just 8 months after Ethos. The hegemony of Krex had launched an invasion of the peaceful Gardner worlds, expecting easy conquest. They had not expected to face a combined fleet of human ships, Zephyrian medical vessels converted to support craft, Altarian heavy cruisers, and crystal resonance energy platforms. The hegemony's invasion force surrendered after the first engagement. shocked to discover that the galaxy's protective instincts had developed teeth. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Galactic Protection Fleet," he had broadcast to the hegemony forces. "You have attacked a peaceful civilization. Withdraw immediately, or learn why predators now fear becoming prey." The invasion ended without a single Gardner casualty. As news of humanity's actions spread, something unexpected began happening across the galaxy. Other species started adopting human customs and philosophies. The concept of protecting strangers, of risking everything for people you had never met, began taking root in civilizations that had practiced isolation for millennia. The Zephyrian Coalition, rebuilt with human assistance and protected by joint defense agreements, became a beacon of what cooperation could achieve. Their worlds, once again green and beautiful, hosted refugees from across the galaxy. Their medical technology, combined with human engineering, created healing centers that treated anyone in need regardless of species or ability to pay. Sage Prime Kethmore, now serving as the Coalition's representative to the Galactic Council, often spoke about the day humanity answered their call for aid. "When we sent that transmission," he would say, "we were calling to the darkness hoping someone would hear us. We expected calculated responses, careful strategic considerations, diplomatic delays. Instead, we awakened something we did not expect. What was that?" listeners would ask. "Fury," Kethmore would reply. Pure, righteous fury at the idea that innocents should suffer while those with power watched. The galaxy learned that day that there is a species for whom protecting others is not a political calculation, but a moral imperative. Elena often thought about that first transmission as she worked in her office overlooking Earth's blue skies. The Zephyrian call for aid had been answered by more than just ships and soldiers. It had been answered by an entire species deciding that some things were worth any sacrifice. The memorial wall in the Luna Garden had grown longer over the months as more names were added. Human volunteers who had died establishing refugee camps, engineers killed while rebuilding devastated worlds, medical personnel lost while treating survivors of other conflicts. But next to each human name was now carved a second name in alien script. The Zephyrian tradition had spread, with each species that humanity helped adding their own memorial practices. The wall had become not just a monument to human sacrifice, but to the idea that protecting others created bonds stronger than blood. Admiral Chen, now serving as overall commander of human defense forces, visited the memorial every month. She would stand before the wall and read the names, remembering faces of young soldiers who had volunteered for impossible missions. On her last visit before retirement, she found a new addition to the memorial. It was not a name, but a message carved in script from dozens of different languages. A call for aid went out across the galaxy. Every great power heard it. Every advanced civilization received it. Only one species answered with fury so pure that even death itself retreated. The darkness learned to fear the light that day, and the galaxy has been safer ever since. Below the message in simple English were the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto. When someone calls for help, humans answer. As Chen stood reading the inscription, she felt a presence beside her. Elena Vasquez had joined her at the memorial, along with Admiral Rodriguez and dozens of other veterans of the Zephyrian campaign. "Any regrets?" Elena asked quietly. Chen looked out at the stars visible through the memorial dome, thinking of all the worlds now protected by the networks they had built, all the children who would grow up safe because humanity had chosen to care about strangers. "Only one," Chen replied, "that it took a call for aid to show us who we really were." Rodriguez nodded toward the memorial wall. "Admiral, respectfully, I think we always knew. We just needed someone to give us permission to be heroes." As the veterans stood together in the quiet of the memorial garden, new reports came in from across the galaxy. The Galactic Protection Fleet was responding to a crisis in the Vega sector. Human medical teams were establishing relief centers for refugees from the corporate wars.